Welcome to Season 3 of the United by Coffee podcast, where our mission is to unite the world through coffee. I'm Christy Ross.
And I'm Greg Hess. And Christy, today's episode is going to spark a lot of interesting discussion around Robusta coffee, which until recently wasn't really taken seriously among specialty coffee professionals.
You are absolutely correct. I think we've said before here previously, but you and I both very well may have been drinking Robusta and didn't even know it.
Right.
Yet, often, a lot of times people in the know didn't really give Robusta a fair look. But that's largely because of how it was used and processed, which is different than Arabica, which is what everybody's used to drinking. And coffee really has two main types, I should say. Robusta is about 30 to 40% of all coffee in the world, and Arabica is about 60 to 70%. And the other types are really sort of minuscule in percentage.
Right. And as we were reading and preparing for this one, I didn't realize that Arabica and Robusta aren't like Merlot and Cabernet. They're two totally different species. So for starters, Robusta has twice as much caffeine as Arabica, half the natural sugars and half the lipids. So the translation for people like me, I guess it's like if it's roasted and prepared like Arabica, Robusta can be bitter, thin, unpleasant. It's its own animal, I guess.
Yeah, which is pretty much how I used to drink it for years.
Yeah, right. Me too.
But today I actually got to try a Robusta and sort of shine quite a different light on it.
That's true. Me too. And it was an interesting experience.
So our guest today is the perfect person to talk to if anyone has reservations about Robusta. Lucas Venturim is a fifth-generation producer in Espirito Santo, Brazil, with the Fazenda Venturim farm. Since 2007, he's been fully dedicated to high-quality Robusta. Lucas has a civil engineering degree, is an experienced teacher and consultant, cupper and roaster, as well as a Q-Processing Robusta professional instructor for CQI, the Coffee Quality Institute. Welcome, Lucas. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for the invitation. Is a pleasure for me to talk about Robusta. It's my life.
Absolutely. I'm fascinated. I can't wait to dive into this because there's so much that I need to learn. And I know that you're gonna provide a lot of that education for us today. So let's start out. My understanding is that you're actually part of a coffee family that came from Italy in the late 1800s. So you grew up in coffee. What are some of your early memories of being part of a fully immersed coffee family?
Yeah, in fact, I remember from coffee trees since I was born. Was my first memories was running the farm and playing around the coffee trees, of course, but also other things on the farm, like lakes. And at that time, we used to have some cattling, and we loved to deal with the animals also.
So one of the differences between coffee grown in Brazil versus other parts of the world is the sheer scale and volume coming out of the operations there in Brazil. So can you give us a sense of the size of your farm and operation?
I was talking to a guy in Germany, and he told me that he don't want to buy coffees from Brazil because he doesn't like the approach from Brazilian farmers, because everything here is too big and the big volumes, and he intend to buy the coffee from small holders. And I told him Brazil is like a continent. You cannot just put a label that everything is big in Brazil. In my state, for example, the average size of the coffee plantations is around 4 hectares. So it's very small. So of course you have some regions in Brazil that are younger regions when you talk about agriculture. So they have bigger lands and bigger farmers, and you have everything. So you have other parts of Brazil, like Espirito Santo, that is a small state, for example. And the farms are very old. My family started here more than 100 years ago. So the older they are, more divided they would be. So usually a farmer here is around 4 to 5 hectares on average. In my family, we run together. I have 2 brothers and also my father. So everybody together, we run around 80 hectares of coffee. So it's around 20 hectares each. That should be like a medium grower, is not a big one.
So one of the things I've read about Brazil is that a majority of picking is done then by machine. But then again, curious if then the smaller farms are hand picking. Is there a lot of hand picking in the smaller farms?
Yeah, in our state, for example, I would say like 90% is hand picked.
Well, Lucas, we know that you left for a while to pursue your education in civil engineering. What did you do from then until you came back to the family business in 2007, and what led you back to coffee?
Yeah, in fact, we never get completely away from the farm. At that point, I was not fully dedicated to that. I think it's interesting because you can collect different experience around the along your life, and at certain point you cannot. It's hard to understand how the things get combined to this point exactly. So when I after the college, I worked with construction for some time, but always also in the farm as was something that was already in my mind. I was always planning how would be the plantations, how we can combine different clones because we have a lot of research in our crops too regarding the Robusta crops here in Brazil. I'm not sure it's because of this, but I think that because Robusta started later than Arabica, we started to grow Robusta in Brazil. It was around the 70s, the late 60s, early 70s to plant Robusta. So we are talking about like 50 years. Comparing to Arabica, that is more than 200 years.
So I'll run through really quickly the big picture. I mean, Brazil is the world's largest producer of Arabica coffee, about a third of the world's Arabica coffee, I believe. And Vietnam is the world's largest producer of Robusta coffee, about a third of the world's Robusta coffee, is my understanding. And Robusta in general accounts for about 30 to 40% of the coffee throughout the world. And Robusta is usually associated with instant coffee or commercial coffees or often blends. So, for our audience, Lucas, explain exactly what fine Robusta is.
If you are already familiar with the idea of specialty coffee, it's easy to understand because it's exactly the same way. We also have a protocol to cup the Robusta. It's very similar to the protocols used for Arabica. And then we set the score for many characteristics of the coffee. So we have like aroma and flavor and mouthfeel and the body, sweet, bitter, and yeah, some difference are that for Robusta, the protocol says that you will analyze some of those attributes together, like sweet and bitter and bitterness, because you are thinking in kind of a balance between them. So also for acidity, you analyze acidity together with the saltiness. So you can, for example, if you have the maximum score in this criteria, you have high acidity with lower saltiness, and the same for the sweet and bitterness. If you have high sweetness and low bitterness, you have the highest score. So, but you can have something between them. So it's important to think about the balance. So this should be, I think, the bigger difference between the two protocols. But it's the same thing. In the end, you put all the notes together, and then if you have 80 plus coffee score, so you have a specialty or a fine Robusta. There's by definition, the fine Robusta. But it's pretty much the same thing of the same idea of the specialty coffee for Arabica too. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. No, that totally makes sense. So you decided to fully commit to Robusta. So talk about your decision to focus solely on Robusta rather than Arabica.
At that point in our region here, we are at 200 meters high, 100 to 200 meters high from the sea level. And the weather is very hot in the summer specifically, and can be very dry. So it was not easy to grow Arabica here. So most of the growers here, they took off the plants from Arabica, and they get this money from the government. They paid some bills they have hanging out. But after that, started a new crisis because they don't know how to do other things. They were everything they know is about how to grow coffee, and they have the structures, the pages, and the workers, and they could not grow coffee anymore. So the mayor of our city, he came out with this idea, with this new plant that they heard about in the experimental farm in Espirito Santo, from the Café farm. There was a plant called by Coilu or something like this, because the plants of the conilon, as we grow here, they were found first in the Quilu River Valley in Congo. So this quilo, I don't know how to speak this because it's kind of French accent, but in Brazil it became conilon. That is the group of plants that we grow here. Robusta, Robusta is, I think it's worthy to say, Robusta is not the name of the species. The name of the species itself is Canefora. It's Coffea canefora. So you have Coffea arabica and Coffea canefora.
So I have to jump in really quick and ask because you said at sea level. And I thought I was under the understanding that coffee only grew at high altitudes.
These species, the caneforas, they occur naturally in Africa in all this region I mentioned. It's like a continent also. So when we talk about Arabica, we are talking about naturally was happening in a very small region in Africa and very close to Yemen and the Central and the Middle East. But for caneforas, it happens a lot in Africa and coming from one coast to the other and from the sea level to 1,300 meters.
That's really interesting. And how has, you come from this long family legacy of coffee growers, and how has that legacy influenced your approach to cultivation and innovation and these things?
Yeah, I think one thing is my father says, and my grandfather used to say, that in coffee the crisis is like a cycle. You have a big crisis every like 5 to 6 years. You have something terrible happening, the price is going down, and etc. And just the people from coffee stay in coffee. So because when it comes from, if you don't have a tradition, if you don't have a feet on the ground, you have to take all of the things off, all the plants off, because it's not worthy. At a certain point, like 5 years later, it's not working. But as we know, as we have like more than 100 years doing this, we know that a better time is coming. So we have to wait, we have to be strong and stay calm, find different ways of processing, for example, and trying to, at that point, for example, this year we have a terrible crop in a terrible harvest in Brazil. Our harvest here is already finished, and we are facing like 46% of breakage comparing to last year. Yeah, so it's it's mind blowing. It's something that could make anybody give up from the culture, But at that point, we focus on quality and we stay calm, because we have to work with what we have, and a better time is coming.
And I think with 5 generations of experience behind you, that's probably helped.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing that comes from all those background of the family. But of course, we have a passion for coffee. So
yes.
I think when we started this project with the specialty coffee, the main thing is that our farm is not big, but this way, if we can find better market for our coffees, improve the income that we have from the farm, we can me and my brothers, everybody stay in the farm and live from the farm and raise our children from the farm, and probably our children will be the next generation growing coffee also in the same farm. So.
Oh, that's great. And what sort of challenges do you see for them, as this next generation hopefully stays within the family business?
Many times when you are talking to people, especially out of out of growers, because growers are more focused on the growing process, but people cares a lot with the sustainability. But of course, but usually a question that I mentioned is that sustainability has 3 main how can I say, bases. Yeah, there is social, there is the environment, and there is economics. So when we think about sustainability, of course, we start with the environment, because we, the growers, we need the nature more than everybody. So we need to take care of the nature. We need to take care of the natural resources, because we need them, because we depend 100% of them. So that is basic.
Fine Robusta is getting more attention in the market. I mean, with companies like yours, companies like Nguyen and other Vietnamese coffees entering the market. Like, what do you see are the opportunities for yours outside of the Brazilian market?
This year was the first year I went to the US in the SCA show in Chicago. It was awesome. and I was invited to talk in a panel there about Robusta and fine Robusta. So it shows me that right now is the moment for the U.S. market. A lot of people asking about samples and asking about information and quotations about Robusta. I think so. That market right now is very aware what's the potential that this is a new universe. In fact, with fine Robusta, because it's different tastes and notes, and people say sometimes that they cupped our coffee and this, it's good. It's not similar to Arabica, but it's good, and I'm happy because you're not trying to do something similar to Arabica. What's the sense? You have a lot of Arabicas to choose from. You will never buy me a coffee that's just because it's similar to Arabica. So we have to do a good Robusta with this own identity. There's a new portfolio for the roasters and for the coffee shops, and also for the consumer itself, the final consumer itself. When we started the roastery, the micro roastery we have at the farm, the idea was exactly this. This was to understand. At that point, we think that because we started to pulp coffee in 2012, and since then we started to earn a lot of prizes of quality coffee and etc. But we didn't perceive the value of this. If the coffee is so good, why they are not paying more for this coffee? If we are champions of quality, what we are not earning more money with this? Because it costs more to produce, of course. So it should be, it should have more value also. So it was kind of difficult to understand. So that's why we started the roastery. Maybe the things about the roasting, maybe people don't know how to roast this coffee and they are not roasting properly, and that's why they don't like it. So when we do a lot of courses in roasting and researches, and started to send samples roasted for people and not to roast. So, and the result was really good, in fact, because usually at the first point, if you, and you know, it's difficult and you have a small sample and you have just like one shot and it's not good enough. So why to get risky with this? I have my Arabicas here and it's working good. So it's easy to say, Lucas, that I didn't like the coffee and it's good, it's done. So when we started to send roasted samples, we started to have this good feedbacks, and then we dive also in the extraction, because with our perception today, especially when we have most developed roasting profiles, it's easier to get over extracted coffee, because the Robustas and Caneforas, they do have more soluble solids than Arabica. So if you, especially when you have this more developed roasting profiles, it's very easy to get over extracted, and that's why that's one of the bad names of the Robusta, that is bitter. I think the percentage of caffeine is not something that you can feel with the tongue. So so you cannot taste it because it's just like in a cup. Even if you have double caffeine in the raw material, but in the final cup, if you have like 30 milligrams or 60 milligrams, is not something that you can taste it. So I do not agree that is something that is bitter because it has more caffeine. Usually it's bitter because it's burned, or it's because it's not good quality. So you have a lot of greens that because most of the growers in Robusta crops, they are not really aware and concerned about quality, because the market never paid for that. So usually they harvest the coffee with a lot of greens, sometimes more than 80% greens I have seen. So you cannot do a good coffee with this.
I have to ask you, like, if you didn't go into coffee, like, what field do you think you would have wanted to pursue?
When I was a child, I used to say that I would be a scientist.
You kind of are a scientist today.
I got that. I got that. Yeah, I never thought at that time that I would be a scientist in coffee, but I feel like I am. So.
Well, you can tell because you have such a pragmatic approach, but also a very experimental approach.
Yeah, very, very. Always trying different things, and that's. I think that's important, because otherwise we would stay maybe 100 years more in the same point.
We have a lot of obviously passionate coffee lovers that listen to the show. But if they were to visit Brazil, what's a place that we should think about visiting other than your farm, of course?
Yeah, again, Brazil is too big, so probably you won't make to visit all the scenes at the same time. But of course, the big cities in Brazil, they have a very, very interesting scene of specialty coffee, especially São Paulo, Rio de Janeiro, Belo Horizonte, and Curitiba. I think they're the main city, but also Recife, is in the northeast of Brazil, is more famous for the beaches and the parties. But even in a hot place, is a very hot place. But the specialty coffee scene, it's very, very interesting. But of course, all the main cities, they have right now as a big producer, and this culture of coffee is doing great. And also Curitiba, that we mentioned before, it's already very, very interesting scene from specialty coffee. But also, if you are trying to visit a growing region, I would mention that's the south of Minas Gerais. That is very interesting and it's close to São Paulo.
And Lucas, you got my attention because I tried your coffee and I did not know what to expect. This is the first time I had Robusta coffee. So I was impressed. It was definitely different than what I'm used to. But again, back to that whole idea of shifting preferences, right? You have to taste it a number of times, but definitely interesting and definitely worth people checking it out for sure. So I want to, I know we're right at the tail end here, so I'm going to actually ask you a couple of questions. We call it our U3 top three. So very brief answers, like just quick answers through this. So our U3 top three is your favorite brewing method.
My favorite brewing method would be the clever drip, because you can control the pre-infusion. And I think it's one of the very interesting things about Robusta, because it takes some more time to degas. So if you do a long pre-infusion, usually you have better results in the end. So I do like the clever, and also you can have also very consistent extraction. So I like it.
So clever drip is like a drip coffee, but it does it allows for the bloom to happen first.
Yeah, it has like a valve in the bottom, so it just releases the flow when you put on the jar or on the cup. So you can keep all the water you put for the pre-infusion stay together, and so it become more homogeneous. And then after the pre-infusion, you can do all the brewing, but you can control exactly how much time you want.
Got it. Okay. So I noticed that when because I did a pour over, and I noticed the bloom was like twice as big, and I didn't know to expect that. And I was like, oh my gosh, like what's going on here? So it was a really cool experience. So, okay. So, second question of the U3 top three for consumption. What's your coffee drink of choice? Like black, latte, hot, cold?
Black. Just black. Yeah,
Hot?
usually. Yeah, but not too hot. Usually I after pour over, I stay like 5 minutes to get a bit cooler. And I stay drinking. I can drink all, even if it's cold, because it's different perceptions. In fact, I like the coffee hot, but when it gets cold, it's also, you can perceive different notes. So I think it's the whole experience. And also the cold brew, for example, it's awesome. I love it. I do love coffee in general ways.
So how many cups of coffee do you drink per day?
Oh, it's very hard to measure in cups, maybe in liters. I for sure I drink more than 1 liter of coffee per day, maybe one to two. Yeah, I drink a. This is the regular cup is like half a liter.
Times 3, right? Yeah, got it.
Lucas, it was so nice to talk to you and learn so much about what you're doing in Brazil and about Robusta. And we want to give an opportunity for you to share where we can point our listeners to find out more about you and your company. So what are the best places to go online or social media? Yeah,
we have the Instagram. It's at Café Fazenda Venturim. And also my personal Instagram is Lucas_Venturim_FV. Then Fazenda Venturim, this stands for Fazenda Venturim.
That's perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Lucas. We appreciate your time. Absolutely love your story. Thank you for sharing your Robusta with us. And we will certainly make sure that we get this story out there.
Yes, thanks so much, Lucas. And thanks to our followers as well. We want to hear from you. You can always reach out to us at connect@u3coffee.com or in the comments with guest recommendations, your own coffee tips and tricks, and of course, what you're drinking.
Again, that's connect@u3coffee.com, or head to the letter U, the number 3, coffee.com, where you can learn, connect, and explore the wonderful world of coffee. We'll see you next time.